Hi, Sarah here. Welcome back. We're back with another video recapping our study of the Gentle Tarot. This is a deck study that I started with a couple of friends a couple weeks ago. Every Thursday evening, we'll voice chat and discuss any specific cards or qualities of the deck, or just do activities together. So week 3, session 3, this is what we talked about today. So first big change I want to mention is that I bought the big guidebook. I had mentioned in the first session that I did not want to buy the big guidebook yet because I want to see what I could get from the little white book so far. I quickly learned that this guidebook is limiting me on getting to know the cards more. There's so much meaning and symbolism behind all of these animals and why they were chosen, and I felt like I was basically missing out by not having the big guidebook. So I ordered this last week and it arrived literally today. So yeah, now I get to experience the big guidebook for myself, and I feel like this is just going to be so valuable in not only my study of the Gentle Tarot, but also in my goal, my journey to be more connected with nature and with animals overall. I have been enjoying and I'm looking forward to learning more about these animals that aren't depicted that often in tarot decks, these Alaskan flora and fauna. Alright, so recapping from last week, I had shared one of the tarot spreads. It was basically this Circle of Self-Care tarot spread, where there are 8 areas of your life, and you just pull cards for each of those areas. I have not done a long journaled tarot reading in like a long time, and I didn't feel like doing that big 8-card spread all in one go. So what I did instead was I just drew one card every day for the week, maybe a couple cards per day, and I just journaled about them like so. So I drew one card, wrote down a snippet from the guidebook here, and then at the end of the next day, I reviewed the card and just wrote down a little message for myself based on my reflections of the day. So for example, on Friday, I drew the Lovers card here, and from the guidebook, I wrote down the excerpt, "Feel grounded in your values." Then at the end of Friday, I reflected on how the Lovers correlated to physical self-care for that day. And for me, I wrote, go to exercise class, even if you don't really feel like it, because it's always better to go to exercise class than to be at home and not have anything better to do. So I just drew one card every day, kind of like a daily draw practice, but with different areas of life to think about. So the first day I drew the Lovers. Next, for psychological, I drew the Hermit. Emotional, the Tower. For social, I drew the Seven of Thunder here. And for professional, I drew the Six of Wands. And I'll talk about them in a moment. For spiritual, I drew 9 of Cups. And for environmental, I drew the Root of Thunder for environmental self-care. And then the High Priestess was for financial self-care. That was a very call-out card because I had some purchases bookmarked, and the High Priestess reminded me that I don't need to buy everything right away. I can still experiment with what I have first before buying more, so my finances can just be inactive right now. No action needed in my finances. All right, and the Unseen, I'll come back to this card later. So those are the cards I drew for the Circle of Self-Care spread. Again, it was a helpful exercise to do this one card a day. All right, moving on to today's voice chat, what we studied today. So these are my notes. We have a lot of Thundersuit notes here, which I will definitely go over. So at the beginning, as usual, I asked everyone to just pull some cards that felt relevant to them and to just share with the chat. I want to share that 2 of the self cards that I pulled, as mentioned, were the Seven of Thunder for social self-care and the Six of Wands for professional self-care. I attended an industry networking event on Monday, so I felt social and professional were the perfect areas of self-care to consider. The story that I got here from these cards combined is to be sensitive to others while also being open and just sharing good vibes, because we're all in this industry together. There's no need to have any rivalry or sense of desperation. Normally, I feel like a fish out of water at networking events. There is a lot of socializing stuff going on. It can be really tiring afterward because I'm putting on such a put together facade and polite facade because I want to ask questions and I want to engage with other people. And I'm self-conscious. I hope that people are not thinking I'm weird. And I'm also cognizant of group dynamics. If there are people floating around, or do I want to exit this conversation and go find a new person to talk with? What do I want to talk about? What do I need to listen about? What questions should I ask? You know, networking events and mass socializing events can be really tiring. They can also be really fulfilling, which is why I still decided to go. So the Seven of Thunder with this lynx here, we had discussed this card in a previous session. The lynx's ears are shaped like this to help it be more sensitive and attuned to its surroundings. I know typically Seven of Thunder, Seven of Swords is like being deceitful and having hidden intentions. So I really like this reframing of just being sensitive to your surroundings. You don't have to assume bad intent. We're just being sensitive. And one tip that I heard about anxiety, probably somewhere on YouTube, is that the antidote to anxiety is basically to focus on other people. So when I'm feeling self-conscious, other people are probably also feeling self-conscious. I don't have to focus on myself. I can focus on other people. What does this other person have to offer? What are they talking about right now? What is interesting to them right now? And then coupled with the Six of Wands, I really love how open the Six of Wands figure is. This posture is so open. You know, them being naked. I mean, all the figures in this deck are naked anyway, but the nakedness does symbolize an extra level of freedom here. There is openness, there's regality, there's owning your space and being open to what other people have to offer. I see here there's openness in both cards here. This was a really great couple of cards to help me soothe my nerves going into this industry networking event, and I had a good time. I enjoyed talking with people and just asking questions and just vibing with other people. All right, so those were the couple of cards that I shared as my check-in about the week. And then we had a couple of ideas in mind. So what we ended up doing was we decided to pull out all of the Thunder suit and lay them out in a row. And then I shared this activity from the 21 Ways to Read a Tarot Card book. So I looked up an activity from the Mode Suit Element chapter. And the activity that I basically chose was this specifically. This is activity 6.3, number 2. Examine each of the suits in your deck and select 1 to keywords that best express the qualities of each suit. And it says here, see Appendix C for suits keywords corresponding to different elements. But I did not share the appendix with the chat because A, I was confident that we could come up with keywords on our own, and B, I didn't want to be limited by, choosing someone else's keywords instead of brainstorming our own. So we laid out the Thunder suit in its entirety, and we took a moment to just list 1 to 3 keywords that we felt best express the qualities of each suit. And if you're interested, maybe you can pause and come up with 1 to 3 keywords to describe the suit here, whether or not you have the deck. So then we shared our keywords, and oh my gosh, they were so ingenious. All right, so to share my thought process, the 2 keywords that I came up with, I could not find a third one. The 2 that I came up with, one was processing, and another one was passing or passage. So I came up with passing through or passing as a keyword because, as I previously mentioned in last week's video, I noticed how the hands in the Ace of Thunder or the Ace of Swords suit are open. They are receiving the lightning coming through. It's different from in other Rider-Waite-Smith decks where the hand is gripping the sword. So these hands are open, letting the lightning pass through. And we had talked about the Eight of Thunder in the session as well, where this person has channeled the lightning and basically grounded it, letting the lightning no longer have power over them. So there I also see lightning passing through. So based on those 2 cards at least, I came up with passing through or passing thoughts, all of the mental things that go on. They really just pass through our bodies. We don't need to hold on to everything. And that leads me to my other keyword, which is processing, which is where we're discerning, which thoughts, which ideas are important enough to hold on to, which ones are important enough that they're telling us something, and which ones can we just leave behind, which ones can we just force into the ground and leave them be. Someone else also came up with the term discernment. Jo shared a couple of words that I really liked. One was nighttime. She noticed that the Thunder suit is all depicted at night, whereas other suits, they do depict more daytimes. So we see night, just lots of darkness here. Another keyword that she came up with that I really love is jolt. Someone else came up with the keyword of truth. Jolt and truth are amazing keywords for this suit as well. When you're faced with a truth or a change of some sort, it can be a jolt, but that jolt isn't necessarily negative or scary. It's just a jolt. So that exercise of finding keywords to summarize the suit was very exciting. And I'm sure in future sessions, we will go over each of the other suits and find keywords to describe them as well. And then we also had wanted to talk about court cards. So I'll highlight the court cards up here. So we started off with the Thundersuit court cards just because that was what was in front of us. Previously, we had talked about the Harvest of Thunder and reviewed why the moose was chosen to represent the King of Swords. We talked about how the moose, while being such a big animal, is also great at camouflaging and being quiet. I also drew comparison between how quiet and serene this moose looks, especially sitting down, compared to this eagle in the Flower of Thunder, which looks so in action. It looks so fierce. It's literally gripping these thunderbolts in its claws. Mari wrote in this guidebook that there's two things here. One is the eagle is gripping these thunderbolts. It's like you gripping the storms that challenged you before. You're gripping your problems by the head. And the other thing happening here is that the eagle is also spreading the values of the thunder suit to around it. So spreading light and clear direction. So both of those depictions or ideas wrapped up into this one visual of gripping these lightning bolts, but also these lightning bolts spread out. That is very cool, very ingenious. And I guess there was an interview that Mari did where she shared that this eagle was based on a drawing that she did when she was 8. And I just find that really precious. Mari also just did an interview with Benny of The Fool's Apprentice, which I just watched like last week, comparing and contrasting the Harvest of Thunder and the Flower of Thunder. Oh, also talking about the Harvest of Thunder. I had mentioned it was interesting that a king, a leader, a harvest was depicted as sitting down. But someone pointed out that this could be seen as the aftermath of the storm. So the Flower of Thunder is actually like in the middle of the storm, in the thick of the storm. But then after the storm has passed, we find the Harvest of Thunder, where we're harvesting the values that the storm has taught us, harvesting everything that the whole Thundersuit has taught us here. So that gave me new ideas for what the concept of harvest can mean. And then looking at the seed and the root of thunder, I don't think we had much else to add to the root of thunder. I just love the idea that this is an albatross who can lock its wings while in flight. I think that's just so funny. I wish I could do that if I was a bird. And then the seed of thunder. So I was curious at what this fox was doing too. And Joe explained that Arctic foxes, they basically hunt for their prey that is, underground or going through the snow. And when they sight their prey, they leap up into the air to pounce down onto their prey. But that can take patience, it takes calculating. It's also a relentless act because you don't succeed a lot of the time. So you have to do it over and over. So that was a really cool random animal fact that I learned. Also, these plants here, the guidebook mentions that they are fireweed and they're ready to seed. So even in the thick of winter, you can still have a spark inside you that is ready to bloom, ready to grow new things, like ready to seed. And even without knowing the context of the specific plant symbolism, I could also say these plants are like weeds or anything else that's just adding to the landscape. And you have to sift through the plants to find the thing that you're looking for in the snow. Okay, so that was our discussion of the Thundersuit. And then we talked about a card that was giving some contemplation. So we talked about the extra Major Arcanum that Mari included in this deck, which is the Unseen Major Arcanum number 22. So we discussed ways to interpret this card when it comes up in a reading, and also just ideas that we can tie into this card, seeing it as it is now. At first glance, it doesn't seem to connect with the rest of the deck because there's no people, there's no animals. It looks very fantastical and kind of mushroomy. That's why it's called the Unseen. It's stuff that we don't see, that we aren't actually familiar with. So we talked about the concept of liminal and what does that mean? My experience and the way that I conceptualize the idea of liminal spaces. Because I work night shift, I'm pretty familiar with some liminal spaces like empty streets, empty highways. I'm very used to driving the streets at night. I actually do prefer it when I can because it's just so much quieter at night. There's less cars to worry about, less traffic. I also have taken late flights, red-eye flights, so I've been in airports that were really empty. And I once did a spread actually based around liminal spaces. So it was a spread exploring the liminal space when we're transitioning from one thing to another. It was a time that my siblings were both moving out of town for their different schools, and I was feeling so shaky about our relationship and letting go of the familiarity of all of us being in the same town. So I had done that spread to explore this transition and explore my feelings around the uncertainty of it all, and how I conceptualize or imagine the liminal space is being on a cliff, kind of like in The Fool. I'm on a cliff, but then that cliff underneath me is eroding away, and all of a sudden I'm just standing on thin air. The cliff underneath me has either eroded away or started drifting backwards, so I can only see it like in hindsight. But what is to come forward? I don't really see anything coming forward yet. I don't see what that next step is going to be, and I can't feel for sure what that new thing is going to feel like. And bringing it back to this unseen card, what I got from it is basically just to soak in the magic of this moment of uncertainty. For me and for other people with anxiety, of course, it can feel really scary to feel uncertain, but there is somehow a feeling of magic in this current moment of uncertainty, the abstractness, the unknownness. What a human moment, a human feeling to experience. When we read from the guidebook here, The Unseen, some of the questions that came up in the guidebook, like this one, for example, what does the spirit realm have to say to you today? So, for us being secular, we have different ideas of what spirituality means or what spiritual realm is. I would reframe that as, what are my values asking me to do today? Are my values asking me to take a step back and pull back because I have been overextending myself and I value not being uber productive all the time? Or are my values telling me to push myself a little bit harder because I know that this is important to me and I don't want to be complacent? So yeah, basically replacing spiritual realm with my values or my purpose. Values and purpose, those are some abstract things that we can associate with the unseen. And from there, we also talked about unseen doesn't mean hidden. It might be hidden in plain sight or literally just right in front of you. It's reminding me of, when you're a child, you're looking through all your drawers for that one thing. And you're like, Mom, Dad, I can't find this one thing. And they come into your room and they find it in like 2 seconds. Honestly, no shame if that's happened, because as a child, we're filtering through so many visual stimuli. It's okay that, we might not see things at first glance. Maybe on the 3rd or 4th try, you might see it. Or maybe someone else coming in can see something that you don't. Similar concept here, right? With the unseen. Not only is a question what exactly is unseen, but other questions could be, did you actually look? Did you miss it? Why are you missing it? What is clouding your vision right now that you're unable to see what you're trying to see? So my homework for next week, I'm inspired to do some readings and some spreads around this unseen card and explore this card even more in depth for myself and apply it in actual readings in my life. Maybe a mind map activity too, where you just have the concept in the middle and you start mapping out like concepts and related words and all that stuff. That could be fun too with this card. Let's see, is there anything else? I think that's really it. Okay, well, whether you have the deck or not, I hope you're enjoying these videos. If you have ideas for future activities, or if you're studying the deck in your own way, I'd love to hear about it as well. If you would like to join our deck studies, we meet every Thursday evening on Discord voice chat. The link to the Discord is in the description. You are totally free to just hang out and listen. There is no pressure to talk or even to type. We carry the conversation well by ourselves anyway, and we're happy that anyone wants to even just listen in. So yeah, well, that is all I got for today. Thanks for watching. Bye!